I love the 2008 film Taken, where Liam Neeson plays Brian Mills, a former CIA operative who determines to track down his teenage daughter after she's been kidnapped by human traffickers while on a trip with her girlfriend, one of her girlfriends in France. In one gripping scene, you see him talking to his daughter's abductors after he's retrieved the cell phone left behind at the crime scene. The father states his clear intention to seek and deliver his daughter. He tells one of the abductors, "I don't know who you are, I don't know what you want, and I can tell you that I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills that I've acquired over a very long career, skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. And if you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you." And the abductor coolly replies, "Good luck." With only 96 hours to deliver his daughter, this father urgently, skillfully weaves his way through language barriers, government red tape, crime lords, elaborate hierarchies to find his daughter. And at the end there, she collapses into her father's arms and she says, "Daddy, you came for me." Bloody, beaten, but ultimately triumphant, the father holds his daughter as he quietly says, "I told you I would." We have a Father that is in the business of delivering us, and Paul would agree. In Philippians 1:18 we read, "Yes, I will continue to rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage, so that now as always Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death." Paul expected deliverance. While deliverance can mean final deliverance or deliverance from prison, verse 20 can go either way. He says, "I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but I'll have sufficient courage. Now as always Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or death." But I'm sorry, I lean toward Paul believing and expecting God to deliver him from prison. Just because he considers the possibility of death, which is ultimate deliverance, does not mean that he does not see present deliverance in view. I believe Paul expected deliverance from his prison cell because of many things. First of all, the power of prayer. I believe that Paul had an inner witness ignited by the church's prayers. Paul was depending on people's prayers. You don't pray for people to die. The church wasn't praying that. Paul was depending on God's provision and answer to prayers. He has an air of confidence coming from faith in people's prayers and God's provisions, and he knows that he would be delivered from death. Even Paul knew that there was a possibility of death, but he expected deliverance. Now, I believe Paul expected deliverance from his prison cell because of the power of Scripture, not just the power of prayer. Now, I believe Paul had an inner witness ignited by Scripture. Now, how would I know that in this passage? I know it because Paul is quoting Job 13:15. "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face. Indeed, this will turn out for my deliverance," Job said. God did deliver Job, even though his situation looked bleak. And I believe that Paul felt his experience was similar to Job's. Job was saved, and Paul believed he would be saved. He said, "For I know through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ that what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance." He had a conviction based on the power of prayer, and he had a conviction based on the power of the Word. He says, "I know what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance." And do you believe in the power of prayer? Has God given you a scripture? God stands ready to deliver you right now. Demetrius Lower of St. Louis was a soldier in the 2nd Regiment of New York Cavalry during the American Civil War. He was taken prisoner in the battle and was confined for a time in Libby Prison in Richmond. Later, he was transferred to the military prison at Andersonville, Georgia. Now, this prison was in an open field on the side of a hill, and it contained about 22 acres as an enclosed stockade of stout timbers. 12 or 14 high was the wall, and above it were guards who watched the prison. A small stream of water ran through the prison at the foot of the hill, which was to furnish the prisoners with water that they needed. This served well enough while the prison was new, but suddenly the prison grew and more men came, and during the war there was more than 49,000 that entered that prison. And with large numbers, the prison literally moved down the hillside, and it began to fill and stagnate the little stream. And under the burning summer sun, these prisoners were beginning to suffer for water to drink, and they became thirsty, and many were dying, and no hope was in sight. But in the prison there were some Christian men, and they began to cry out to God for water. And as they cried out to God, there came a tremendous rainstorm. It began to flood like they'd never seen. And early in the morning, to the joy of the prisoners, they found a strong spring had burst out of the hillside, flowing down amongst the raining water. Deliverance had come, and the suffering and the thirst were over. Nothing but the miraculous work of God was the result of it, and they named the spring Providence Spring. The Civil War is ended and almost forgotten. The prison grounds now have been destroyed, but the spring is still there, and there's a bronze tablet which you can still read, Providence Spring. We have a Father that will go after His children and will deliver His kids. You can depend on it. Pray right now. Believe God for a miracle. And I believe as you back it up with a word from the Lord, a word from Scripture, God will deliver you.